I'm back! I know it's been a while away from YouTube. This isn't going to be like some sort of triumphant return. I'm not going to be start making a bunch of videos. But I did find this article and I thought it'd be really fun to review. So I work at Medieval Times. I've been there for quite some time now. Technically, I am a Knight's Apprentice, which means that I'm training to be a knight at Medieval Times. So I'm learning to horse ride, I'm learning to fight with the sword, I'm learning all these things while still helping squire the show. And to squire is basically, in theater terms, it's like run crew. So I found this article from SoYummy.com, and it's 23 employees from Medieval Times share their secrets. And I want to set the bar straight on what it's like to work here because it's interesting. Let's get in. So the article starts by saying, jobs generally aren't thought of as fun, but Medieval Times is one of these places that just seems really, really fun and cool to work at. It seems cool. The experience has it all. Sword fighting, medieval style talking, knights, queens, kings, really good food, horses, games, and jousting. Yeah, that's all true. There's always an experience to remember. So working there has to be pretty epic, right? As it turns out, kind of is. Employees from Medieval Times who did everything from waitressing to be a knight to work at the more corporate divisions have written about their jobs online, and honestly, they seem to whatever. Okay, so number one, the knights get around. There are a lot of characters in Medieval Times, but the knights are kind of star of the show. Is that any surprise? And apparently they actually get a lot of action from it. It's actually funny. In the training that we get, they're like, oh, the horses are the stars of the show, but it's the knights. Especially because in the very beginning of the show, they're like, it's the Knights of the Realm! Yeah! And they really hype up the knights a lot. A Reddit user who worked there said, it's not all good. She was quick to note that the place owns them. She explained they're there every day, every night, so the free time they have is spent resting and playing World of Warcraft. They do get phone numbers after the show, though. This is true. Every day we have off is really just rest because it's such an intense job. We don't really play World of Warcraft. We used to play a decent amount of Fortnite now. A lot of the other guys, they play Star Citizen or Sea of Thieves, stuff like that. I don't really get into those games. They do get phone numbers after the show, though. That is true. We actually have a little wall of numbers that we've gotten that we're not going to contact, but it's just kind of funny. There was someone that actually brought a poster for my friend, and she wrote out, it was big and sparkly, and it said, "The Green Knight is my hall pass." So that was pretty good. Sometimes there are reasons for who gets a rose. This is true. Reddit user explained to be Knight Medieval Times, totally honest. Sometimes because they're hot, others because they're little girls, and others are just random. Depends on the night, really. This is true. It also says usually wild fans get noticed first. That's also true. We always look for little girls first because it's cute, and then if we can't find any, usually the step up from that is whoever the knight thinks is attractive, and then it is right. So there's a lot of truth to this. The fighting is all staged. Very true. It is choreographed. Some guys sell it better than others, but it's a very, very dangerous thing, and they're not just going to give us a bunch of heavy metal weapons to run around the stand with and beat the heck out of each other with. Training to be a knight is actually very intense. This is very true. I'm going through the knight training process. So, honestly, nothing compared to the training we received the 12 months. Yeah. So it's tough. If you've never been around horses before working here, it's a very, very, very big learning curve. And aside from that, you have to learn how to do the show, where to put things, the choreography, and all this stuff. And then learning to be a knight is a step up even harder from that because you have to learn to ride, and then you have to pass something called your head, leg, shoulder test, where you learn all the different strikes and blocks that you would have to do during the show, and they make you do round after round after round of it, and it's timed, so you have to go really fast when you're ridiculously exhausted. You can barely feel your legs when you're trying to do it. Performing on a horse is very tough. That is also true. A lot of people think that the horses do their own work. They don't. It's all you. They might introduce female knights soon. This is false. For us, it's a challenging job from a training staff and it's still not completely out of the question. We continue to change and evolve as a show, so stay tuned. Yeah. There has been talks about it, but they've been sort of pushed to the side. I don't think that we're going to have any female knights, unfortunately. But we would love to. It'd be really, really cool. There's a method to who wins the matches. Also true. Everybody that I know who knows or who finds out that I work at Medieval Times always asks me, "Oh, do you know who wins before it starts?" Yes, we know like a month in advance. It has to be planned out, because if it's not, we can't just do an improvised show with such a big audience and jousting and weapons and all that stuff. Yes, there are some things that go wrong that we do have to improvise, such as when a horse kind of goes astray, or if a weapon breaks, we have to, jump in and do something about that. But the winner is always predetermined, yes. It's really hard to get extra food. Let's see what they have to say about this one. Who said they were a server at Medieval Times explains that it's tough to score more food because you already paid for just one meal, but if your server's feeling nice and the kitchen has extra, they may be able to swing it. I wouldn't know because I never asked for extra food, but I saw a review online that said if you ask for extra food, they'll give it to you, though I'm not 100% sure of how that works. Nothing is that historically accurate. Oh my gosh, this is something that we argue about every single day at work. I know at one point the storyline was very accurate to some history in Spain. Now it's all out the window. Yes. The only accurate parts of the show are the country names, the night names, supposedly. This is true. It is very historically inaccurate. It used to be more so, but now with this new show that we have, the dialogue, they use words that didn't really even exist back then. The queen is all ruling, and while I'm all for like girl power and queen stuff, it didn't happen back then. The horses are generally treated well. This is true. If you ever are seen mistreating a horse in any regard, you will get a very, very stern talking to, or potentially just thrown out. The horses are generally treated well. They are worked a lot. They do all the shows, but they're given 3 meals a day. We bathe them every day. We pamper them, all this stuff. We make them look all pretty for the show, and some of them are really just our best friends. It's really, really adorable when they recognize you when you come into work, or when you have to do something with one of them who might be difficult, and they end up being nice to you. And yeah, they can be cute. They're really just big dogs once you get to know them. Hazing knights isn't really a thing. You may have heard rumors that knights in Medieval Times are hazed when they get a job, which doesn't sound fun. Employees say maybe it was from the old days of the company when there was a more bit of a frat house atmosphere. We were serious about a healthy and safe work environment. They said they never heard of anything of hazing, adding, if so, it was just simple pranks. Yeah, this is also true. Originally, from what I've heard of, there have been some very, very vulgar hazing traditions when you became a knight. Now it is a lot of just pranks. We keep it loose backstage. We're always pranking each other, whether it's, doing funny voices or tapping each other on the other shoulder or tripping each other. Whatever it is, we like to keep it loose. And now it's not really so much of a hazing as it is encouragement. Once you become a knight, everyone is very proud of you because the training is so intense. We would normally prank a new squire during a show to grab a left-handed sword or axe. They'd get super confused and sprint like crazy to find this thing that doesn't exist. Yeah. So many times we like to have fun backstage, but when it comes time to do the show, we really have to pull together and be serious. But then there are these people that, like to mess with the new people during the show. When we're putting out the joust rails during the show, sometimes they'll like shake them and it'll try and get the new guy to drop it. It's unprofessional in my opinion, but it happens. If you want to work there, it's best to have some experience. This is very true. The creative director of the show explains on Reddit, I prefer experience on stage, but in the sand we look for something different. They explain as the process of applying, saying we audition and augment the speaking roles as needed. Each actor is videoed and I review the recording before we make a decision to hire. I don't know how necessarily true that is. It does help if you have a background in theater, and it also helps if you have a background in horses. If you have horse experience, that's also very good, because I went in not knowing a thing about horses, and it was very, very hard to learn all of that stuff on top of learning the show. And it's a very fast-paced environment when the show is going because you have to get everything done very quickly. As far as the auditioning process goes, A couple of my friends applied to be the queen, and I am pretty good friends with a few of the queens. I've never asked them about the audition process, but I do know that one time a couple of the corporate people, at least at the New Jersey one, they were driving by and they saw this guy like just walking on the side of the road, and his name is Eric, and they're like, "Hey, you want to be the king of medieval times?" Just because he had the look, he had the beard, the hair, and he was like, "Oh, sure," and they just kind of gave it to him. So they make it sound a lot more official in this statement than I would say it sometimes is. Be prepared to do some acting in your interview. If you plan on applying to medieval times, you want to be prepared as possible. Be comfortable giving minutes-long speeches to 30 people. Any public speaking experience is good but not necessary if you want to be a server. The more in character you are, they'll typically give you better tips. That probably works for servers, not necessarily for the knights and squires. Most of the questions are standard interview questions, like what would you do if blank happened, but also a few niche questions like can you carry 50 pounds? Are you allergic to horses? Yeah, we one time had a stable person. It was terrible. They really were happy and excited to work with the horses, and it turns out they were allergic, so they just couldn't do the job. Can you carry 50 pounds? Yeah. Actually, before you become a squire, you have to go through a physical exam. They take your heart rate and they make you step up onto a large block to the beat of a metronome that goes faster and faster, and you need to maintain a certain like BPM or whatever all the way through the test. They also make you lift this this heavy block over your head and put it on a shelf. It's probably to simulate putting the horse saddles away at the end of the day, because some of the pegs are very high, and horse saddles are heavier than they should be, honestly. They also make you carry a pole right out in front of you with sandbags attached to it, which I imagine would be to simulate the flags that we have to carry during the show, which are also kind of unreasonably heavy. The pay is okay, but the job takes over everything. Oh. Convincing you to work at medieval times, you can, but know that employees think the pay could be better. They added, as with the job, it could be better. It wasn't the pay that encouraged the formal knight to leave. The job took over his life. Yeah, so it does. It says here that, you know, the people there become your family because you're around them for so long and you go through so much, so many experiences of things going wrong during the show, etc. It's tough, and the pay could be better. Everyone always complains that, you know, you'd think that falling off of horses and sword fighting, doing such a dangerous job, would warrant a higher pay, but it's not nearly as much as it should be at all. Nobody here is in it for the money. It's more for the experience, the people that you're surrounded by, and really just the attention, because it's fun to perform. The food isn't very medieval at all. Although medieval times is known for their excellent spread, the food actually isn't very authentic. Interesting. To be honest, I don't think there was ever any aspect of our meal prep that is medieval. On a typical Saturday night, just one location might prepare up to 4,000 meals. That would make the authentic way of cooking medieval food a little difficult. I mean, yeah. But also, if you had medieval standards of cooking, then everyone would probably get food poisoning and the Black Plague would come back, so. Speaking of which, they do go through a ton of food. Yes, that's very true. On a Saturday, when they have 3 shows, they go through about 3,000 to 4,500 chickens. That's insane. It's also true. I've seen the imports that the kitchen department gets, and it's a lot. To this point, 3-show Saturdays are a nightmare. We don't have to do them anymore right now, I think because of COVID, but I really dread the day that they come back because they're so exhausting. They're like, I think 10 or 11-hour days, and you just do show after show after show. The moment you clean up one show, you're going to do the other. The kitchen is also really careful with preparing food. I would hope so, but I can't really speak to this. The kids are one of the best part of the job. This is true. It's a very tough job, but when you see a kid who really believes it and who's smiling and getting really into it, it reminds you of why we do what we do. It's very, very rewarding to see a kid that looks at you and smiles and is having the time of their life. Waitressing at medieval times is not easy. I would imagine it's not. I never had to be a server, but they have to carry trays with like 5 pitchers of liquid on it. It looks really, really, really heavy. And to try and keep all of their people satisfied, I imagine, is tough too. They have to deal with all kinds of awful, drunk, angry customers who get angry when they're told they can't have utensils. Yeah, I imagine that's also tough, dealing with people. I hate dealing with people. Also, these trays are very heavy to carry around. There it is. And with being called a wench sometimes comes harassment, and when people don't tip. Yeah, it's being called a serf or a wench could sort of get, I suppose, degrading after time. But again, I don't have to do that. I don't have to deal with people. That's a good thing. The only people I have to deal with is the people in my department. Employees enjoy the food to a point. The food is good. Wondering if the employees also like and eat the food? They do. User and former employee Princess Leoner said they eat during the show, adding the premise is that the guests are invited to join us at a feast, so they bring us food. I'm not gonna lie, I get pretty sick of it, but on the other hand, at a certain point during the show, I always get hungry, and I'm glad to have the food. Totally conditioned. So we don't usually eat during the show. Usually during the show, you have to be like on your game. But on days when we have multiple shows, the kitchen department will actually whip us up something nice. They'll give us like leftover chicken or potatoes. And then other days they'll give us, these like personal little mini pot pies. We'll get a tray of lasagna or personal pizzas from Cisco, which is the company that we order our food from. So it's good not to get the same Medieval Times food every single day because that does get old. When I first started, I couldn't get enough of the soup. The tomato soup is so good. And after about a month, I was like, get it away from me. If you're playing the bad guy, prepare to get booed. Not only should you expect people to boo and yell at you, if you're the villain, one night reveal it's common to get objects thrown at you. I got booed all the time, being the bad guy so much, but it was all part of the show. I never actually got mad at anyone unless they were throwing shit into my arena. Which happened a lot. If people were booing me, I was doing my job right. That's true. How did one respond to booing? My favorite thing was to ride along the wall near other sections and wait for someone to boo me really distinctly in the front row. I'd stop my horse dead, turn really slowly, and give them the murder stare. They shrunk away into their seats. Everyone else in the crowd laughed and thought it was great. Then I'd ride away. So that might be in the older shows or something like that. Typically, this show that we have now, they're pretty strict in the blocking where they want to keep pretty much everything consistent. So you can't just stop and like stare down a guest if you wanted to, although that's really funny. And you can't, if people are throwing objects into the arena, that's unacceptable. Sometimes we'll just keep it, which is kind of funny, and we're not supposed to do that, or we'll give it back to them. But my boss, he is usually the bad guy. We have about 3 or 4 people who play the bad guy, and it's hilarious when he gets booed. And he loves it too. The more boos that he gets, the more like into his character he gets. He'll start screaming, and it's quite fun. You know you're doing your job right if people are booing you and you're the villain. Knights don't even know how to ride a horse when they apply. Yeah, that's true for the most part. I didn't know anything about horses. Most people do learn how to horse ride when they get there, or once they've passed their squire training. But some people in the stables, we have some people who have an equestrian background, and they will have already known to ride, and so they can help us learn, or they can help us do, fancy things with the horses, whether it's dressage, or whether it's doing our parade routine, which is a set of choreography that the horses go around the arena with. So yeah, it's interesting. It's like getting a job at McDonald's. As long as you can move across the ground and the sand pit, they'll give you a chance. Since I first applied, they put a bunch of physical standards in place. Yeah, I talked about that before. The physical test you have to go through, it's tough. And that's it. Alright, well that concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed learning about the wonderful world of working at Medieval Times. If you have any questions about what it's like to work there, and if I didn't answer them in this video, please leave a comment, and if I get enough, I might make a video about doing a Q&A about working at Medieval Times. Thanks guys, have an awesome day!